there's more than just the goal of having enough at retirement. You have to put it all together. Welcome to Tell Your Boss I Quit with me, Pete Gutekunst, the podcast where we help you financially bridge from where you've started to the life goals you've imagined.
Pete, I know you've been working on this beach house, and from what I can tell, it sounds like you should be at completion or at least nearing completion. What's the update on that one?
We are done. It is completely 100% done. It's the best money I ever spent. I feel really good about it. It was a good exercise to go through personally, but I talk a lot about journaling and, thinking about what you want to spend your money on, what you need to spend your money on, and how you go about it. And I lived it firsthand. We had carpet and we put new flooring in it last year, and that was good. We're like, hey, let's get this. And you know what? We had always talked about doing the kitchen. It's a small house. So, these weren't huge projects and we don't live there. So it was easy to do. And so we went ahead and in the fall, we did the kitchen, and the kitchen was great. We weren't unhappy with the kitchen. Don't get me wrong. But would we have picked that floor had we known in the spring that we were going to do that color, white kitchen from the wood cabinets? It looked fine. And then, I don't know. Took a while to get a backsplash done. So we finally got that in there. And that was a big decision. I don't know if any of you, if you've ever been involved in a project like this, Justin, but if your marriage can survive redoing a kitchen, you are good to go for the rest of your married life. And this is our second kitchen, so we're good. And that was hard. How do you pick the grout and the right tile and all of that? And it all went through. That got done. And somewhere in there, my wife said, we've done so much, we might as well redo. There's an area upstairs that's carpeted. Okay, we'll do that. That wasn't originally part of the plan. And it just didn't quite, every time we would go, it was like, oh, it's nice, but did we really need to do this? And the reason I'm going on and telling you all of this is, I help people decide, can they afford things? Should they afford things? And sometimes you spend money and you feel bad. You regret it. You don't want to feel like that. You want to feel good. But at the same time, I think you want to acknowledge when you did something right and you did something well and you do feel good about it. So the end of my story here is, boy, this is a long story. Didn't you ask me, aren't you just done your kitchen? Well, yes.
Well, we wanted the update. Obviously, we want to get the update on that. Plus, it is the dynamic of how it affects you is important. So yes, keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. So the very last thing we did was paint. And just like grout colors, there are a bazillion shades of some kind of white, and we picked out a certain color and we went back and forth, and we had someone down there and paint it. So we didn't see it as it went. We left the house and came back and everything was done. It brought everything together. It looks amazing. Now, that's why we picked that carpet. The floor looks great with everything after all. The kitchen, the grout that we choose with the tile, it looks amazing. We are so happy. I can't wait to get back down there again. I can't wait to go there and not have to worry about doing a project, but it looks great. And I came home that last weekend and I just felt really good. I had decided this was a project that I wanted to put money into. I had saved up for it. I was ready to spend it. I could have put money in, in a number of ways, but this was something I wanted to do, and I feel great about it. And I wanted to write that down and remember that feeling, because sometimes we've done things and I wish we hadn't done that. And so next time I'm in that situation, try to keep yourself in check and try not to, be so over exuberant or impulsive. And this is a project that just really kind of got itself going, and we didn't intend to do all that we did when we started, but we had a range to work with. And like I said, the carpet wasn't originally part of the plan, but I'm so glad we did it. And that's really important in your financial planning, is you want to think about the things you want to do now and how you can enjoy them and how they'll improve your life. And you want to do that in a way that you're not kind of, blowing your retirement plan either. So this wasn't money that was part of that. It wasn't taking money out of something. And I feel really, really good about it. And now that it's done, I can see money that I thought, just to be safe, let's keep some money around in case this project goes elsewhere, or the next thing, we want to do another thing and another thing. And no, we're good. We're really, really good. And that's, I think, really important. Equally as saving and being frugal and mindful and wise, it's good to make a decision and spend money and feel really good about it. And so that's how the Shore House is. That's my update.
No, that's great, and I think it's an important, obviously, part of the process is the end when you're actually sitting there like, wow, this is everything we wanted. This is
Yep.
perfect. I
Yeah.
think what we should do is jump back to the beginning of this and kind of talk about to people who are contemplating making a decision like this with their home or their beach house, perhaps, uh, to just get to that point to say, let's do this, map this out, because that can be scary for people.
Yeah, it absolutely it can be scary. And even as I went, we're spending money and even if it's something you could afford to blow your money on, you just don't it doesn't feel good. And then not feeling good about your plan isn't good either. So you want to go back to the beginning, and that's absolutely the case. Is over the past several years, there were things that we knew that we would like to do, and we thought we probably would need to do. The house that we have down there is going on 15 years old, I guess maybe closer to 20. The house I live in, full time, that house is going on 25 years old. I mean, there's just things you need to do, and you need to do them. So as time has been going by, we've been saving money. Should I add it to my investments? It's not really part of my plan as a number that I felt I needed to, but I could. Should I just be saving this up? And part of our, you know, marriage dynamic, if you will, partner dynamic was, hey, the money's there. Let's go ahead and make the phone call. And that was part of it too, is we were accumulating the money. Now it's okay to even make the phone call to get a quote to see what it costs. And that's all part of that process. And so in our case, like I said, we had money set aside, and there was money we would like to spend, money we felt we could spend, and money we hoped we didn't have to go that far. And I'm proud to say that we were at the lower end of that range. I think it all pretty well worked out. But knowing we weren't taking money from some other place or some other goal was a very helpful starting point. And then having it all turn out so nicely in the end made the whole thing really just feel good too. And it made me feel good about the whole plan in total, not just when it comes to the house.
Yeah, I understand the feeling of even planning so far ahead and having the money sit there, and you know what it's for. It's going to be for something that you obviously want and want to get done. But how do you help people kind of deal with them actually spending the money? Like there is something to be said. You could put aside a block of any amount of money, and no matter what, even if you know it's okay to spend, when it's gone, there's a feeling that doesn't feel great.
Yep. Yep. And that's why I started out by saying it was such a good feeling. We felt really good having done what we did. And I think you are spot on with that. Some people spend too easily and too freely, and they need someone to kind of pull the reins on, or just, do a little bit of a double check or remind them, that's be a little careful here. But a lot of people, I think, are, to your point, they just have a hard time letting go. And that's a shame, because they're probably missing out on something they would enjoy. If they had a house like we do, they might not have improved it and made it even better. I have a lot of people that I meet with, and I say, "What are your goals? Tell me the thing." "Oh, I want to retire." So, well, what else? What else do you want to do? And I don't live too far from the Jersey coast, so a lot of people would like to have a beach house, and they'll say, "Well, I'd like to have a beach house." That'll never happen. Well, it'll never happen if you don't sit down and plan it out and think about it. And so that's really, I think, is the key, is always looking and working backwards. Do I have enough that I'm going to be able to live out my days and I'm prepared for that? And so then what can I, allocate to some of these goals here that are happening today, or I'd like to happen sooner? And there's a lot of things you spend money on that go away. You make you make your car payment gets paid off. Your mortgage eventually ends. You might send kids to a private high school, let's say. That's kind of like paying college tuition. I see a lot of people paying that fee, and then they're scratching their head. How am I going to afford to pay college? Well, you're already paying the tuition. Oh, guess what? That could be money that is available for you to do something like this in the future. And those are the things that you just really need to map out, is where is the money going to come from? And if you have little kids and you're paying daycare, let's say, then in 5 or more years, there's probably going to be some excess cash flow if everything's kind of okay the way it is, paying that large daycare. So you can think ahead to the things you would like to do and put that money towards it. Or if that's money that you're not quite saving enough for retirement, you're going to be able to get back on track. It just got to put it down on a plan, but it's really important. There's more than just the goal of having enough at retirement. You have to put it all together.
So let's shift even farther back. Obviously, a project on your home that you already have is awesome, and that's a great accomplishment. But let's talk about someone who might be in a position where you said they're having kids, their family's growing, and they are looking to grow their home, find a house that fits their family and the trajectory of where they're going. How are you helping these families kind of navigate buying a larger house and leaving what they have behind?
Yeah, well, like you just said, some people, they spend the money and then they feel regretful or they can't let it go. Same thing here, is some people are too fearful to move forward to that new opportunity. Or the other side of it is, some people they might take the leap and just assume it's all going to work out, and they might be taking a little more of a chance. And so here again, what you want to think about is, when you apply, if you're younger and you apply for a mortgage, that lender is going to tell you the most you could possibly borrow. This is what you'll qualify for. I can give you this much money, and then go out and find that house. And so you want to ask yourself a question: just because I can, is that a wise use of my money? And back to this whole quality of life part of the conversation is, if you do that today and you maximize spending today and you're really closer to living paycheck to paycheck, what would need to happen in the future so that you have some excess to be able to save, to be able to be a little more financially independent rather than feeling that paycheck to paycheck experience? When you're younger, you'd like to think and believe that your income will be growing and you gradually will have more. And that's a very distinct possibility. But I think you have to have that in mind. You have to realize, if I make this decision, if I go in this direction, I'm assuming that I'm going to have this excess income in the future. And the other plans and the other goals I have are going to work out because of that. You could be a little more cautious and say, well, I don't want to reach for the biggest, baddest house I can get, but I want to do something nice and make an incremental change. Again, it's all about the numbers just tell you how close to the edge, I guess, you are. And then you want to, kind of think about, how close do you want to be? Do you want to be more paycheck to paycheck? Do you want to have a little more freedom? What if you lost your job? What if you decided to, have one parent stay home more with the kids as they're growing up, and you were going to dial back income? You want to think about all those things that could possibly change, and then build into your plan the most flexibility that you can. So buying the most house that you possibly could afford on two incomes, that might obligate you to continue to have two incomes. So you just want to make a decision with your eyes wide open.
Yeah, I could imagine, and going through that process a couple times just to kind of see where we were at. And full disclosure, it seems like it's going to be possible in the future, but I also, just the state of everything, I don't know. It just feels like I want to see the house prices go down. I don't think that's going to be a thing that's going to fall in our favor at some point. So I probably am holding longer than most. As far as taking that leap, what would you say to someone? And I'm not here asking for financial advice, but
Come on. You're always here asking for financial advice.
while I got you, what would you say to someone that's like, maybe they could jump into something, but they're hesitant to do it, thinking that it's too soon? Like, I don't know if I'll ever feel like it's time. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's right. I think anyone who ever said, I'm not going to start a family until I have enough money, is never going to start a family. So you're right about that. I think, again, you really have to think about the things that could happen, that could go wrong, and how you would adjust, or how well you could accommodate or be prepared for that. And what I mean by that is, if your job took a 10% hit, let's just say, or one spouse lost their job, how how would you manage that kind of situation? When it comes to waiting for the houses to change price, that's kind of like waiting for the stock market to come back down again and get a better buying opportunity. A lot of people say, well, the stock market's way up. I'm going to wait till it comes back down again. And that's when I'm going to put my money in. And it goes up and up and up, and they never get their money in. And then by the time it does drop, well, it's higher than where they originally started. And so that missed opportunity, you always have an excuse not to do it. Same kind of thing with home prices is we live in this relative where we just were kind of a world. And so prices have gone up a lot. And so you would think, well, prices have to come down. Well, they don't have to come down. They could just stay where they are for a really long time. And you could be waiting and waiting and waiting for the prices to come down. And maybe your buying opportunity will be finally getting in before they finally start to go up again. That could be a scenario. Things don't have to go up or down. They can just stay the same or kind of move around in a range. So that's why I think you have to kind of think about what can I do now when it comes to quality of life and a place to live. Waiting for prices to come down, I think it's more of, can you manage it? Can you afford it? And interest rates are high. Is an adjustable rate mortgage make sense because interest rates are high and you think they're more likely to come down? That's a valid point. A number of years ago, no one would have taken an adjustable rate mortgage when they were low and only likely to go higher. But historically, some people have been burned by adjustable rate mortgages, and they would, say, "Oh, that's not the thing for me." But at the time, what harmed people having that type of financing at the time is a different set of circumstances, perhaps, than we're in right now. So you really just have to go into these things eyes wide open. And what is my exit strategy? I think that's for you is if something just didn't quite work out, what would I do? What would I do? Would I be able to sell this house and kind of go backwards if I really, really had to? That's sort of worst case scenario. But is that an off ramp? Would I just have to work longer because I won't have as much excess income? Though you have to just think about all of those things. What are the trade-offs? Because it's never going to be perfect. It never is going to be perfect.
Yeah, I've heard that before, and I feel like that's the case, like you said, with a lot of things in life. But yes, I think obviously that's my situation. We're currently renting. Timing the end of our lease with the homes available is also another thing that you got to navigate. But talking about someone who might already be owning a home or maybe own like a townhouse, and they're like, it's definitely time to make the move. When you already have something like that, that transition definitely looks a little bit different into something bigger. What are you working with them on to kind of get to that same point, that jumping point?
Well, right now, with interest rates being higher, some people, if they have a mortgage and they're selling their property and they're still going to have a mortgage, even if they're going to owe the same amount of money, they're going to be disappointed to see that their mortgage payment is going to be a lot different, because the interest rate on the new mortgage is going to be higher. So for those people, they're people that might be accumulating some savings as well as building the equity that they are building in their current home to be able to move into the new home. And so that's another part of the function of doing that. Again, if you think interest rates are going to come down, we've probably said this before together, you and I, is you don't marry the house. You don't marry the loan, you marry the house. And so you love the house and you think I can get into the house and I believe that it'll only become more affordable in the future because I'll be able to refinance. Maybe I'll be able to build up some savings once I'm there. You just have to walk through, and there isn't a perfect right answer for everybody. And so you said you're waiting for a certain thing to happen. And when you make a decision, you have to think about, why did I make this decision? This is why I think journaling, again, is valuable, is why did I make the decision now? Why are you making the decision not to buy a house now? Or it sounds like you're kind of close to that point. Or why is a person making the choice to do what they did now? Because what will happen is things will turn out a little bit differently, at least, if not a lot different than you thought. Interest rates will wind up being higher for a reason we didn't expect, or vice versa. The interest rates will be a little lower. your income will all of a sudden improve in a big way that you thought possible but not probable. Things will change, and then you're like, oh, why didn't I do this so much sooner? Look at all the how my income has grown. So you have to really think about making that decision, and that's a big part of what I do. I don't necessarily go through and crunch the numbers and say, there's the answer. I go through and say, look, this is where you are. And if this set of circumstances happens, this is what could happen. If this set of circumstances happens, this is sort of the risk that you're exposed to. And what would you do about it? What could you do about it? And then you make a well founded, good decision based on that information in that moment. And that's the only way you can live life. I think that's the best way to go about it. You can't have regrets. You want to feel good about it. And that's why I said I wanted to feel good about the money we spent on the shore house, because if later on I wish I had that money for some other purpose, I know how I feel right now and I shouldn't regret it later.
So could you walk me through what this looks like journaling wise for someone when you say, like, I'm checking the box. I'm saying, listen, we're getting into a house 1 year. That's the goal.
Okay.
What would that look like in a journal? How would you lay this out to kind of have a reference point to go back to and say, here's kind of the timeline. What does that look like, that conversation? And obviously, your classic tagline of "it depends"
Yeah,
can
yeah.
apply here. But let's just kind of walk through like the basic steps here.
Yeah, well, if you're doing that, if that's really where you are paying a certain amount in rent right now. And I would recommend that you do is you think about, well, if I were to move right now and buy the perfect house, I would probably need a mortgage of whatever that number is. And what is that mortgage payment going to be? So, first off, how much different will your mortgage payment be than your current rent? Because that's going to kind of drive, what a new monthly payment, whether it could be more or less. I've actually worked with some people who are in an apartment in a little closer to the city, and they'd like to live just a little bit further, and they could actually buy a home and actually have a little lower, even though interest rates are high, payment. So you want to think about what that would look like, and what are you going to need to make the move? What kind of moving expenses, down payment, where's the money going to come from for that transaction? So do you have it? Make sure it's not at risk so that it's going to be there a year from now. And because we're talking about journaling, what does that number need to be? And what are you going to do to contribute to it? So this is what I believe I can do today so that I will be in a position in 12 months. And that'll give you something to refer to daily, monthly, however frequently you want to refer to your journal. Or did I save that 1,000 a month? I didn't. Well, why didn't I? Well, I went out to dinner and we had a really good time, and we visited some friends out of state, but I don't want to give that up. I felt good. Okay, then guess what? Your house goal might need to adjust. But you know what? I've got to tell my friends I can't come visit you this year because we're socking money away to buy the new house. That's okay too. That's where this journaling can really help you, I think, stay focused on what you need to do. But envision what the next 12 months, where do you need to be 12 months from now to make that purchase happen, that home purchase happen? And what did you do this month as an incremental step to that? How close were you or not? And what can you do about it?
Okay, thank you. This has been great for me. No, yeah, I know. Obviously, it feels a little targeted towards me, but yes, I mean, there's a lot of people in my situation, and I think a lot of people, even a little bit younger, a little bit older than me, that are in the same situation where I think that's very important to know. Yeah, you can try your best to time the market, but in reality, it's going to be when you're ready and when it makes sense for you. And journaling, like you said, is going to be the first step in kind of seeing what that looks like a year from now, as opposed to just waiting for the end of your lease to be up and then say,
Yeah,
I guess let's look around for something. Really good way to kind of do that.
that's exactly it. I've had, like I said, I've had this conversation. I've seen a lot of people closer or in retirement who have sold their homes. They sold their homes because real estate prices are at their peak. They're kind of thinking this is the most I'm going to get for my house. And they've sold their house, but they haven't figured out or decided where they want to go. Maybe their kids haven't quite landed where they're going to end up. They're not sure they want to live in the city, or, some people are kind of moving a little further away. Some people are moving altogether different. They just haven't quite made up that decision. So now they're sitting on this bundle of money and they're paying rent somewhere. And so it kind of goes that way too. And that's not a bad solution either, is you can afford to pay rent and do something for a little while rather than putting the big chunk of money out if you're at that stage of life. Um, but that's part of it, is what would it look like if I made the move? What would it look like if I bought the house? And for many people, if they just wait for it to happen, today's the day. I'm going to look for a house and buy a house today. And you haven't really thought about it, you will have regret. You will say, geez, I could have had more money saved if I had really thought about it, but I didn't really think about or plan very hard for it. So it sounds simple, but having a plan in place and actually thinking ahead and then making yourself accountable to doing it makes all the difference in the world.
So let's talk a little more about that stage of life. I mean, obviously, a little bit later in life, I think that's a good problem to have at that stage when you realize that the kids are out of the house, they have their own life there, and then you're like, man, we probably don't need all this space. The downsizing aspect sounds a lot more fun than the upsizing.
Well, then at that point of life, you've accumulated a house full of memories and stuff.
Mm.
And so downsizing implies that you're going someplace smaller. So what are you going to do with all of your stuff? My parents were really good over years. I'd come visit them or they'd come see me, and there was always a box sitting out. Here's some of your stuff. We're not going to keep this stuff, but if it matters to you, you need to take it home. So how do over time, but that takes time to kind of whittle that down. And I've also seen people move to, what they believe to be, the place they wanted to live that stage of life. And their kids were coming back for the holidays more, and their families started to grow again because they were having grandchildren. Darn, we sold the house with the nice big dining room and now we don't have a place for holidays. You got to think it all the way through. So I always tell people this, that downsizing does not mean down spending. And so a lot of what we're talking about today is about a quality of life. You're thinking about buying a home rather than renting because you want to have a place of your own and a place that you can really make special, and there's something to be said for having your own space and not having to have someone else tell you how to handle it or what to do about it. And there's a lot to be said for downsizing and having less to take care of at that stage of life. You don't, you have the yard, you had the kids, now you don't want to have to deal with that any longer. But that doesn't mean you're going to be spending less. So that's all part of it. And that's part of this journaling is, imagine you're going through it right now and you're writing it down as though it took place. You know what the cash flow is now, but imagine if it were happening. How well would you have been able to cover that? And then you can say, oh, this isn't so hard or bad. Or I don't know that that's worth the stretching of the dollars. So you really have to kind of think it all the way through.
And this is another aspect. And again, this is not to do with me, but I feel like everybody sees this.
Come on. It's all about you. It's okay. I love this podcast is Justin. It's all about you.
Me and my issues. No, this is 100% something that everybody's dealing with, especially like we talked about before with social media, is seeing where people are at in different stages of their lives and trying to keep up with them, like the old keeping up with the Joneses.
Yep.
That is something that I early on, especially in my life, my sister's 3 years older than me, and her life accelerated a lot faster than my life. And comparing the two, there was a window where I was like, man, I am so far behind in life. I don't know what's going on. This is crazy. And that's just my family. So now with social media, you see everybody doing everything. It's super important to try to navigate it in your own bubble and try not to look outside of that. How do you speak to people who are coming to you feeling kind of stressed and getting emotional about how other people are at their stage of life?
I always say it depends. You have no idea what that other person's situation is like. You see the appearance on the surface. They might drive a nicer car and you wish you had their car, but for all you know, they're just down to their last penny every month, or, you don't really know. People might look the way they appear to you financially, and that may not be the case. And so you have to be really grounded in what matters most to you. And if it's having something that requires more dollars coming in every month, and that requires two primary household, of husband and a wife both earning maximum dollars, then that's a decision you're going to make. And that's also going to be a decision you're going to make about how you handle daycare and things like that. And someone else just might not want to do that. They might feel that that's just not, that's too important to them. So they're going to make a different decision, but that decision is going to put them in a little bit of a different financial set of circumstances. And you have to own that. And that's why, back to journaling and things, I think that's what matters is you have to own what it is that you want. And if you genuinely want whatever it was you thought your sister had, then try to figure out how to make it happen, or recognize that, hey, maybe my income isn't quite there yet, and I have to put it off and feel okay with that. But I think that that's what I tell people when they start comparing themselves to others. You just really don't know. You don't know what they have. You never know. You never know what another person's problems are. We think it looks great, but and that's what I try to tell people is when they start saying, I want this, or my neighbor has that, or I wish I could do that. Yeah, I think the first question you should ask is why. And if it's because my neighbor has it, well, give that one some thought. If it's, well, I see that my neighbor has family over and they have great picnics at the 4th of July and they have a big Easter egg hunt, but I don't have that nice outdoor patio and that outdoor kitchen. And if I did, I would. Okay, well, maybe that's a legitimate reason. And then let's figure that out. But if you're like, the kids never come around, I'm never outside, then what the heck are you buying a patio for?
Yeah, that's well. The neighbor just got a golf cart. I got to say, I kind of want a golf cart now.
Okay, all right.
No, but yeah, no, that's obviously I know that falls in the wheelhouse, but it is nice to see them buzzing around. But you're like, okay, that's another car payment. It feels like
Some of those fun things, I don't know so much about a golf cart's resale value, but some of those things, we were talking earlier about having a second home. Some of those things are worst case scenario. You sell that second home for less than what you bought it for, but what you lost was just the difference in that price, but you got to enjoy it while you had it. That's back to feeling good and about the money that you spent. So if having a golf cart for a little while is a good thing and it makes things easier and you buy it for 10,000 and you get rid of it for 6 someday, I don't know how those things hold value, but it was $4,000 of your money over that period of time worth it or not? I don't know the answer to that, but I think when you start thinking in those terms, again, I use the term exit strategy. If you have an exit strategy where this isn't going to blow up my financial world, if it doesn't work out, or if I just really regret it, then give it a try.
yeah. Send me the invoice. This has been very therapeutic. I appreciate your time there, Pete. All right. So, hey, I feel like we've kind of touched on everything.
Yep.
Like all this felt a little too close to me.
I have worked with people who are renting. And, in many cases, like I said earlier, I have people who sold their house and started renting. And now they're ready to move back into an owned, they've lived their life and owned property, sold that property, downsized, whatever we want to call it, and went into a nice luxury rental place. And now they're ready to go back and make a new residential purchase. And the houses just aren't available. They can't just say, oh, tomorrow's the day I'm going to find the house. So the question becomes, do I go month to month on my lease, or do I go and sign a whole new, annual lease? Well, that might give me a lower monthly rate, but what if I find a house in 3 months? What if I find a house in 6 months? What's my cost if I want to get out of the lease early, if I do sign the annual lease? So that's all part of the process here is when you're thinking about your next step is what are the costs? And so if signing an annual lease has a, several $1,000 exit clause, to get out of it, factor that into the number. Worst case scenario, I could spend a little bit less per month, but then I have to write this bigger check. That's my exit strategy. But if I wind up living here for another full year, that will have been the wiser thing to do. So again, make the decision based on the information you have right now and why you did it today. Don't 3, 4, 6 months from now say, oh, I signed an annual lease, I shouldn't have done that. No, if that's a decision you made, feel good and own it. And that's the reason you did it. And things might change and turn out differently. On the other hand, flexibility is a huge thing in a financial plan. And going month to month, if you might move in the next 6, 7, 8 months, might cost you a little more per month, but it might cost you less to make the move. Who knows? So that's really part of it, is you want to think all these things through. And I guess the theme for my conversation today has been exit strategy, because I feel like I've said it a lot of times. So what's your exit strategy? What's it going to cost you to get out of a situation? And if it's worth it or even smart to do it that way, then that's what you do. But own the decision and feel good about it, because you made a good decision now based on the information you had now, not the information you may have 8 months from now. Thank you for listening. And if our discussion resonates with you, let's start a conversation about what matters most to you. Go to goodfinancial.com, click contact, and schedule a 30-minute chat. I'd love to hear from you.